disclose that information in any way, all of it needs to be destroyed now. But if you disclose it in any way, it's going to put me in a position where I will have to withdraw from the case. If you all choose to go on the internet and try to publicize this stuff, that's going to create real problems.
Okay.
You can't do it, is what I'm telling you. You cannot do it. I will have to move to withdraw from the case.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So make sure everybody's aware of that.
This is not another boring podcast. Mustafa threw the police body cam Judge Weimer under the microscope. Now, I think it's fair to put Mustafa's defense attorney, Brad Heyward, under the microscope. And we're going to have an honest conversation about what Brad Heyward is doing in the Mustafa Aljazari case. Brad Heyward has been Mustafa's lawyer for just about a year now. Now, we're going to talk about the details that are coming out of the Brady motion that Brad Heyward filed in the Mustafa Aljazari case. And we have a lot of questions for Brad Heyward. Now, it's one thing to say the judge is not impartial in the Mustafa Aljazari case. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to let this community decide if Judge Weimer is impartial. I'm going to let this community decide if Brad Heyward is working for Mustafa. Is he working for Mustafa? The community is going to decide. There are details that are coming out of this case. The body cam that Commonwealth Amy Ashford sealed is now all over the internet. The file, the document is all over the internet. This community is going to be watching the details that are coming out of the Mustafa Aljazari case and is going to decide, is Brad Heyward working for Mustafa? Now, we just got done visiting Mustafa. Mustafa is hanging in there. Mustafa was beaten up by a correctional officer inside this jail. We have a CCTV video where Mustafa was carried unconscious from one cell into another cell. We have pictures of his injuries. And since Mustafa has not gotten medical, so he is slowly deteriorating, but he is hanging in there. I want to thank the nice correctional officer that was sitting at the front desk. We went in, we saw Mustafa. I want to thank her for her service. I want to thank Muhammad for being on this podcast. Muhammad, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It takes a lot, making time to come out here in the freezing cold and talk about this corruption and this injustice that is playing right before our very own eyes. So thank you for having me.
We're frustrated. We're upset. There are details that are coming out of this case that are not making any sense. Now, Mustafa's defense attorney, Brad Heyward, filed a Brady motion. And on the record, the prosecutor Sarah Sammy, lied on the record, flat out lied. This is not up for debate. The transcript is there, and prosecutor Sarah Sammy has been lying for 2.5 years, and she continued to lie on the record. Now, unfortunately for this prosecutor, we can check her in real time. The days, right. Those days where the file's been sealed, those days are far gone. It's over. Those body cams are on the internet, and the documents are on the internet. When the prosecutor in real time, in court, lie, we can verify if she's lying or not. Now, the problem I have is when this prosecutor lie and Mustafa's defense attorney lets it go, let her get away with lying, that's a huge problem. The prosecutor said that the independent expert was allowed to reconstruct the vehicle. That's on the record. Now, I have a body cam that show
Drum, specifically.
Investigator Drum said to the independent expert, you are not allowed to touch the vehicle. So where is Mustafa's lawyer from telling Judge Weimer that, Your Honor, I have a body cam that this prosecutor
instructed the investigator. Yeah.
Instructed the investigator
flat out
to not allow to reconstruct this vehicle. Brad Heyward didn't do that. As a matter of fact, Brad Heyward said, I'm satisfied with the independent expert work. What does that mean?
Which, by the way, nobody knows what his work was because we haven't gotten a report. It took Blake Weiner to argue in court to the judge that Casey Stevens is withholding Stephen Keen's report. That Stephen Keen is the independent expert that you paid $5,000 to go in and inspect the car. And on body cam, we see they did not allow him to inspect the car. Robert Drum specifically says, word for word, Sammy said you are not allowed to touch this vehicle. And the expert says, well, how can I check the brakes? How can I take the tires off? And he says, nope, you are not allowed to touch the car in any way, shape, or form. Because according to Robert Drum, Sarah Sammy doesn't want anybody manipulating the car that they've already crushed, that they've already chopped up, that they've already destroyed. That car, he says she doesn't want anybody manipulating it. How can you not manipulate something that the police department has already crushed?
So
they've already chopped it up.
They crush and stage the vehicle. And the police department doesn't have a reason, a good enough reason, why they crushed the vehicle. I mean, on body cam, they say the only reason we crushed the vehicle, we had the fire department chop up the roof, crush the vehicle, roll the vehicle forward is to get the ACM. Wait a minute, I have pictures of the vehicle at the scene that the vehicle was not caved in. You had access to the ACM. There is no warrant. By the way, there is no signed warrant to get the ACM. So they crush the vehicle and stage it, and then the independent expert comes in, they remove the original scan, the Leica scan, they scan the vehicle at the scene, they scan the SUV, but they remove that scan, the independent expert scans the vehicle, but by the way, he didn't scan the SUV. He only scanned Mustafa's vehicle, the vehicle that they already crushed. How does that make any sense?
It does not make any sense.
I mean, my problem is...
what he scanned is the portion that they have already chopped up. That's what he scanned. So the computer doesn't know that the police chopped up this car. I mean, think about it. This expert came in, he scanned the car that the police had already crushed. With no good reason, by the way. No good reason for them to crush it.
And the fact that Mustafa's defense attorney is not putting a motion to dismiss, the police department literally crushed Mustafa's vehicle. It's crushed evidence, crushed and staged it. Where is Mustafa's defense from putting a motion to dismiss? Now, Mustafa's defense attorney, he says he's satisfied with the independent expert work. Which work?
Satisfied with
how?
What exactly?
How? I mean, that's one thing that we're going to get into. Mustafa's defense attorney.
Well, I prepared a statement.
Well, before you go into the statement, I want to put a couple of bullet points that we want to talk about. The judge, the presiding judge in the Mustafa Aljazari case, 4 weeks ago, ordered that Mustafa's vehicle get reconstructed. That's on the books. That's on the record. That's 4 weeks ago. The presiding judge, Judge Weimer, ordered that the SD card in Mustafa's dash camera that the police department is in possession of get extracted because the officer that took possession of the dash camera admitted to tampering with the dash camera. Now, evidence in the case file showed that Officer Zymuth admit that this dash camera does have audio. There is missing footage from this dash camera. It cuts off before impact. This dash camera that's in the police department server doesn't have audio, but then you have digital forensic admit that it has audio.
And it's questionable. It's questionable what Chad Mason said on the stand on October 31st, 2024. He says that Sarah Sammy is the one that told him there's no audio. How can the prosecutor tell the police, who, by the way, the police are, the chain of custody gives the police, they're holding this evidence. This dash cam is in the custody of the police department. Yet you have Chad Mason on the stand tell the courts that Sarah Sammy told him there's no audio. And then a few minutes later, he changes his statement. By the way, he's under oath. And he tells the courts again that this time he says he was the one that notified Sarah Sammy there's no audio on the dash camera. He's the one. So, again, which one is it? Did the prosecutor instruct you to put in the report that there's no audio, or did you tell this prosecutor?
Absolutely.
And we don't know because he said both of them in the same hearing.
So wait a minute. He notified the Commonwealth attorney that he violated the chain of custody, department policy. He said he notified her without getting a warrant.
And she had no problem with it.
So what communication took place between Chad Mason and the prosecutor and Sarah Sammy? Now,
It's a very
4
good
weeks.
question.